This is crucial to the game, and oh my God, GG!
Sounds good, they're cutting through the pick up of the Colossus!
All over the second. There's no drones on the map. He kills it and he wins.
Stardust is gonna do it.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hello and welcome to the Dreamhack Open Grand Final at Dreamhack Winter 2013. We were happy to have you guys here. We are your hosts. I'm in control. She's Smix. How you doing, Smix?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm really excited about the games today. I know there's only, better games to come compared to yesterday, and even yesterday had some really amazing games, so.
Yeah, Dreamhack is always pretty lucky to have some amazing series, and Dreamhack Winter, of course, no stranger to that. Star-studded cast, just absolutely packed. There's still 16 players alive. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Let's go ahead and do some introductions, though, guys, because we want you to know, if you're just joining us today, who's going to be walking you down this journey. We are your hosts. I'm Control. She's Smix. We will be doing, actually, you're doing questions, I believe, today, like a lot like yesterday, right?
Yeah, I'll mostly be over here again doing interviews with the players after their matches and kind of just delving into what they were thinking in the match. So you guys will primarily see me here doing that. And Yef, what will you primarily be doing today?
As I'm known in Sweden, yes. I will be casting pretty much just like yesterday. It's actually kind of a mirror image day. Yesterday was mostly just getting through those awesome matches with the three casters, who I'll now introduce, but I'll be joining them as well. It's going to be Nathanius and Apollo. They'll be the main casters for this event, all the way up through the grand final, of course, in day 3 tomorrow. And that's it for the people that are going to be kind of helping you guys out with the entertainment. And as far as everything else, we do have a video to show you about Dreamhack Open. Let's go there now. And there you have it. They always do such an awesome job. Dreamhack is unlike anybody else in the business. Really cool job. But of course, a tournament like this couldn't be made possible without the help of sponsors.
Yeah, a huge shout out to Azo, Logitech G, and Kingston HyperX. As I said this before, but really we would not be here without them. None of these players would be here. None of this would be here. We really have to thank them for this because Dreamhack is definitely one of the best tournaments out there, and it really just would not exist without them. So make sure to give them some love.
Absolutely. So big shout out to those guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at the schedule so you guys can have an idea of what's going to go on today. There you have it. We're going to start off with Patience versus MMA. Patience having a coming out party here at the end of 2013. A lot of people did not know who this guy is, but they're going to start to know now.
Exactly. He's definitely one of those Koreans that I know a lot of people are like, who is this guy and where did he come from? But it seems to be the story that a lot of Koreans start out that way and make a name of themselves by the end of the tournament. So we'll see if he's able to do that here at Dreamhack Winter.
So as you guys can see, we're in the winner bracket and loser bracket stage. This is a double elimination tournament at this point in time. Of course, the cast will talk more about the format, but the point is we brought out this sexy boost. We've got the big stage for you guys. It's all about that awesome show for tomorrow, but of course today is a little bit of a step up from yesterday, so it's going to be really fun. Let's go ahead and introduce those casters. It's Apollo and Nathanius.
Thank you very much, In Control and Smix, and welcome over here to the casters area, the casters desk, where we will start day 2 very shortly. How are you doing, Nathanius?
I'm doing pretty well, Apollo. I'm looking forward to some amazing games today.
Yeah, there's going to be absolutely world-class games here today, and I wouldn't expect anything other than that. We have some of the best players, 16 of the best players still remaining in this tournament. We lost 3 players yesterday, if we exclude Welmu, who unfortunately couldn't make it to complete the 20-player lineup. We started with 19. We're down to 16. 3 players were eliminated, and we're about to find out who's going to be eliminated today, because we're going to play the winners matches. We're going to play some loser matches. So before we kind of confuse ourselves, let's have a look at that bracket, and let's have a look at the format and how things are going to shape up. Those are the 16 players left in this tournament. We're going to play from the top all the way down. So we're going to start at Patience versus MMA, work our way through those winner brackets, and then go down to the loser bracket. What do you think about that so far?
I mean, the lineup is incredible. We kind of talked a lot about yesterday. The players making it into the winners bracket have this extra life in the tournament. They have a little bit of breathing room if they make a mistake. And considering the matchups that we have, some of these players going up against each other could be tournament winners already going at it in the first round of the winners bracket. So having that second opportunity is really going to give a bit more longevity to some of these players' tournament lives.
That's right. So players that finished in 3rd and 4th place in the group yesterday are positioned in the loser bracket. They have 1 best of 3. Win or lose, they are out. So that's a big important play for those guys down there. But that's it for the format. As you can see, a massive bracket. We're going to try and get through as many games as possible today. I think it's roughly 13 or 14 best of 3s. And then we'll go into the last set of games tomorrow in day 3. It's going to be an exciting day. And we can really start to focus on our first matchup here, which is going to be Patience versus MMA to open us up for the first game of day 2 here at Dreamhack Winter.
Yeah, Terran versus Protoss. Patience, probably one of those guys that if you've been following the circuit, you might not have heard as much about. He came through the online qualifier, swept through his bracket. He took out CJ Ensis' Hydra to actually win the qualifying game to get here. He's no one to be laughed at. Came through first in his group yesterday, and he's played some absolutely fantastic games. I haven't been able to see him come out here yet in this tournament, and I think MMA is more than a capable opponent for him to start off against. Yeah, that's right. This guy playing through the online qualifiers made it into this tournament and started very strong yesterday, going 3 wins and 1 loss, finishing in 1st place in Group A, alongside Naniwa, who's in 2nd place. They're making it to the winner bracket. So he really shocked everybody. I think most people were expecting him to be near the bottom of that group, not to come through 1st place. For a lot of you who may not know who this guy is, he was formerly known as Lucy Prime on the Prime team in Korea, but more recently changed over to Team Azubu and also changed his name to Patience. He's a Protoss player, and well, his record at Dreamhack this tournament's been pretty good. Will he be able to continue it through in the winner bracket? He does have those 2 lives being in the winner bracket, but he's going to go up against a player that you all know and probably love and know more than anything here. It is, of course, MMA. MMA, probably one of the more favored Terran players in this tournament. Had a pretty rough start to yesterday's matches against Stardust and JYP and Life, but he managed to come back through. Took out 2nd place in his group, and he's been looking pretty good as far as his overall match score has gone. Not quite as good as Patience so far in the first stage of this tournament, but against Protoss, a very capable Terran player on any map, really. Absolutely. MMA is a fantastic player. He's fast, he's determined, he's had a really good year, an uprising year, because last year he struggled. This year has been a story of how MMA is regaining his former strength, and I think it's quite safe to say that he has got the former strength back. He's performing well. He got a round of 4 finish at Dreamhack Bucharest, which is enough to get him a spot to play at Dreamhack Winter at this tournament. And as you can see, there is the stage. The players are in their booths now, unlike yesterday, where they were just sitting at their 10 PCs set on the stage. This is still a best of 3, bear in mind, between these 2 players. Who is going to move on? Remember, the winner of this game is actually, at minimum, going to be top 8. Winner of this is in the prize money. $3,000 to win this best of 3. And then, of course, the chance to move on with 2 lives as well, because you are in the winner bracket. Yeah, there's a lot at stake, not only with just winning this match, as you said, but getting into the money that fast, getting that secured top 8 spot, very important, at least if you want to make a little money back on coming to this tournament. But I think another important thing to consider, as you said, is that they do have that second life. So no matter which way this goes, both players will still be in the tournament following this series. But it is a best of 3, so just 2 games could potentially decide our first player in the top 8.
MMA this year has struggled against Protoss a little bit, especially as it gets to the later stages. But with development on his losses, he actually started to play quite well against them and has shown pretty decent results so far. Is he going to get nervous on stage, realizing that there is a lot of pressure on him going up against a relatively unknown player here? And we don't know that much about him. We haven't had the pleasure to cast him yet at this event, as he's been on the other streams. So we're going to learn a little bit about Patience as well. How he plays. Is he the aggressive Protoss player? Is he going to sit back and play a more Dia-esque, a more slower defensive Protoss play? That's what we're going to have to find out within this best of 3. And it's going to be starting very shortly. As our first game, our first best of 3 of day 2 is going to be underway in just a couple of seconds' time. I'm excited for this one. Let's find out who's going to move on to the next round, who's dropping down to the loser bracket.
Yes, it is time. Welcome to Belshir Vestige, ladies and gentlemen. Spawning in the northwest position of the map, the red Protoss player, mostly unknown, but coming through top in his group from Team Azubu, it is Patience. Went on a tear through the online qualifier. And he is up against quite a capable opponent, as you said, making it through Dreamhack Bucharest. In the southeast position, the blue Terran from Team Acer, it is MMA.
Yeah, MMA's really just had nothing but climbing results. Starting in the World Championship Series in Europe, round of 16 in his first season, and everyone's like, yeah, come on, you're better than that. Come on, I'm a believer, do better than that. Then he came into the Season 2, where he managed to get a semi-final finish, and then in Season 3 he won it. He won it 3 seasons in a row. There's loud noises going on again with Thanis, and having a little bit of flashbacks to yesterday. But there is MMA. How well is he going to do in this series? He was 2 wins and 2 losses in yesterday's games, finishing in 2nd place, going up against Patience, who finished in 1st place. Do you believe in MMA can do this? He can win this series?
I think he's got a solid chance. And this goes back to the point that you made earlier. Patience not being quite as known as some of the other players in this tournament. He's not quite that profound Protoss that we've all been watching all year, like SOS or Stardust. And I think that while this might give a bit of an edge for him, for MMA maybe not to know what to expect from him, MMA played some very solid and safe openings versus Stardust yesterday in his games. He wasn't really, he didn't really fall victim to any early aggression. We saw actually a lot of Terran players deal quite well with that early aggressive play from the Protoss. I think it's something that you start to expect a little bit more in the recent metagame with the Oracle patch as well.
Yeah.
So I think MMA opening up with this Barracks gas, probably going to be that very quick Reaper. Might even go Reactor first like he did on Yansu. But there's the Reaper. I think this is just a good, solid defensive way. As long as he keeps information in front of him and stays actively aware of what's on the map, it won't matter what Patience brings in the beginning as long as MMA is diligent with his scouting.
Well, as we can see, which MMA can't yet, we're not really going to see any aggression come out from Patience. There's not going to be an Oracle early on. There's not a second gas taken. He's not going to be able to afford to go up to that form of tech. And I'm pretty sure MMA will maybe be a little bit thankful for that. As Patience here is moving around with the probe, having a look to see if there is any proxy barracks or an SCV down there to find out if there had been an early gas, maybe an early factory been placed down. A little bit of scouting information here for Patience. But the Reaper is on its way across the other side and immediately a reactor behind this. But MMA is inside and sees there's no second gas. So he knows that this is just a 1 barracks Nexus.
And the nice thing about the probe going down for Patience to scout out for that potential proxy is that he also gets to kind of bypass this SCV. He doesn't have to come out with it. He gets the Nexus up. There's no fear of an engineering bay block. And MMA's Reaper will be able to get in and scout pretty much everything that's happening. This Mothership Core will try to jockey for positioning and keep it away. Picking that off in the early game is huge for a Protoss player. As a Terran, it's really most of your early game scouting, since this command center is a little bit later than some of the more economic builds.
Reaper is having a good scout around here, trying to see if he can pick off a probe or not, and that's not going to be the case here, as the Stalker's about to pop out. The probe, though, is going to get inside the main base here, and that's actually a very nice scout here for Patience. He sees the second barracks, because usually after a Reaper expansion, there's a couple of different openings that the Terran could go for. I mean, he could throw down the barracks, as we've seen. It could be a factory where Widow Mines or Hellions could come into play, so that is a good scout there from Patience, and it's going to be up to MMA now, who is now in turn to find out some information himself. What's the tech? What's the tech choice for Patience after expanding? It's multiple options, and that's something MMA needs to really know.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because oftentimes a Terran player will just run that Reaper after a certain point, after that 6-minute mark. You want to know exactly where the Protoss is going. The positioning of this robotics facility behind the natural expansion of Patience is interesting in that the Reaper is much less likely to check there at this early point in the game than it is to run into the main base, and not having that information can either force MMA to prepare for something like 2-base Dark Templar or really any other variety of Protoss attacks. Some Protoss players will even go for the 2-base Stargate, but now he's starting to move out a little bit more. Even has a couple of Marines active on the map. It looks like he wants to potentially put a little bit more pressure on, and a fast Immortal from Patience.
Wow, a fast Immortal coming out here, and with a fast Immortal being played, this means he will start to get quite aggressive, I'd imagine. An Immortal's quite an expensive unit this early on here, Nathaniel, so we'll see how that's going to shape up here, as MMA still in search of information, and not only is the robotics facility hidden away from the Reaper, it's also hidden away from scans potentially as well.
Yeah, these Marines step up. Mothership Core activates. Photon Overcharge basically saying, okay, you can leave now. Picks off a Marine for his trouble. So still in a pretty solid position. Patience doesn't really have to invest too much into defending this. A couple of extra gateways will complete as well. And Patience is actually adding on 2 more, so he's going to get a 5-gateway setup as he has a second Immortal on the way.
All right, so we are quite sure now what exactly is going on here for Patience. The Reaper, though, did it see the Immortal? It was very close to seeing it. Whatever the case, it's inside the main base. Going to have a look around. Sees a couple of extra gateways. Not exactly sure what that means here. Could be just the 2nd and 3rd gateway. He's missed a lot of vital information there with that Reaper. I don't think he saw anything with this.
Yeah, and here comes that push from Patience. The Marines actually run right past this probe as it places the pylon. Stalker getting in a few shots, but this is kind of where not having that information early on is going to hurt MMA. He's got a lot of Marines, though, trying to press this back. Denying this pylon is very important to prevent that 5-gateway worth of reinforcements from bolstering the attacking force. He still has 2 other pylons on the map, but now adding on a 3rd, and here comes the force. He's got a lot of force fields available. Both sentries able to put down at least 2, almost 3, as 2 Immortals come in. 2 bunkers are about to complete for MMA. He has the SCVs ready to pull, already bringing them up. Cancels the bunkers. He's just going to try to go for it. On top of this, the force fields, cutting the Marines in half, using the time warp to lock them back. The missile turret actually pushes the Mothership Core away, and the SCVs coming up. MMA bringing all of his Marines with that stim to shove this back. The Stalker's trying to get in position as well. The first Immortal gets sniped. The rest of the units barreling through here. Not a lot of Zealots to tank for this army, and Patience is somehow managing to press through this heavy Marine composition.
Yeah, without combat shields, these Marines are quite soft, especially with no medivacs after a stim here, and Patience does push forward, but does he have enough? There was a lot of SCVs lost, but remember, medivacs are out now, and I think with a couple of SCVs, MMA might be able to push this back. +1 attack isn't too far away from finishing, but a 2nd Immortal really is going to beef this army up.
Yeah, he's got a lot of fighting power coming up here. The SCVs are prepared. There's a medevac here to help keep this bio alive. The command center is getting attacked. Those Immortals just do so much damage. He's basically forcing MMA to make some kind of response. And here come the rest of the SCVs. More Zealots coming in. Another sentry as well. He's doing his best to push him back. Gets the Mothership Core, but force fields pinning a lot of this bio back. All the SCVs get killed away from the main army. And this command center is still under threat.
I think it's going to go down here, Nathanius.
He will be able to pick it off. The Marines doing their best to stave this attack off from Patience, but that Guardian Shield makes units even harder to kill. A Widow Mine is planted, kills a half-dead Zealot, and now Patience is getting ready to press up the main ramp of MMA. These Marines doing everything that they can to hold this back. 1 Immortal does get killed, another Stalker as well. Patience putting pylons on the bottom of MMA's main base ramp. He's fully committed to this assault.
But +1 attack is finished. Combat Shields isn't too far away. MMA is holding on. He's lost his command center, so he is far behind. But MMA feels confident on the high ground. He's going to move a medivac with units here to pick up the pylons that are behind. There is another one there right outside his main base. Is MMA going to be able to come back from this situation? Remember, Patience doesn't need to go for the full-out attack. He can easily fall back. He has 2 Nexus. He has 35 probes to 19 SCVs here. There is a big advantage in favor of the Azubu Protoss.
Yeah, and it's that 2-base economy, really. He's just now starting to really push the probes out. He's taken both the simulators and his natural, so he's keeping that option open to still press forward with his tech as the Marines come down, snipe off another Stalker. He'd really like to kill off these medevacs in the early game, but now he's managed to mostly shove Patience away. The last pylon inside of his main base natural area should be eliminated. Concussive Shell is coming in. I guess one of the other questions is, when does he rebuild that command center? Does he rebuild it? Or is he just going to try to make some sort of really big 2-base attack work? I'm honestly not so sure.
All right, well, we're about to find out here. MMA has +1 attack. He has combat shields. He has concussive shells. There is no splash damage until that robotic spray is finished. There is an Immortal, 10 Zealots, so that's a lot of Zealots. Can MMA make it work with the units he has left over after
The
that
SCVs
defense.
are coming as well out of the natural. MMA is going to gun for this. He's left 6 behind at home to mine the minerals. One medevac goes into the main base to scout. That gets picked off by the Stalkers, and I don't know if he's going to be able to make this push work. There's a lot of forces here. That Mothership Core will also have the Photon Overcharge in just a matter of seconds. Robotic space coming in. This has become a time game for MMA. If he wants to make this attack work, he has to go now.
2 additional sentries. He's got 3-4 force fields now. He has a Colossus on the way. MMA, this is it. Is it going to work? This is his only chance, his only attack.
And here it comes. The Zealots baiting forward, take out the Widowmine. And here's the Mothership Core. There's the Photon Overcharge. This army is pinned back behind the Nexus. MMA has a lot of firepower with that +1 attack. He's actually focusing the Nexus. Might try to just kill this and evac. And the Nexus has fallen. He's trying to step back first versus this force. The SCV is actually doing a great job of getting in front of those Stalkers. The Marines are trying to barrel through everything. All of the Zealots have been cleaned up. MMA's pressing back. Patience up his own ramp and trying to pick off. That Colossus very close to coming out. All the probes being pulled for Patience, preemptively getting a little bit ready to try to catch MMA on the ramp. That Colossus is isolated from the main army. Will he be able to snipe it? He's chasing forward. These Marines are so red. He does make it up the ramp into his main base, but the Marauder gets the final shot off. There's not much left for either player at this point. MMA doing everything he can, but he's run out of gas in Patience base.
Oh, he got rid of the Colossus, but had to sacrifice a couple of units in doing so. And unfortunately, MMA has lost his army there. He's got 10 SCVs and a mule or so back at home. But is he really going to recover from a lot of losses? Likewise, Patience is bleeding as well. He's lost his natural Nexus. He doesn't really have enough money to build another Colossus here. So it looks like this game may go on for a little bit longer. A very tense game between these two players. MMA doing the best with what he had there. And somehow, he's not dead yet, when a lot of people probably thought he would have been and should have been.
I mean, for the position that MMA was in, you really can't make much more happen than that. He walked into the Photon Overcharge, still managed to pick off the Nexus, and killed that Colossus. Very expensive with the economic damage that Patience took for him to actually replenish that force. And he hasn't built another Colossus yet. He's still just sitting on his few gateway units, trying to power out this Nexus. Now another Colossus begins. MMA, though, no natural expansion for him. At some point, he might just have to lift off his main command center to move down. But we have to also take into consideration the worker count was ahead for a very long time for Patience. At the end of that fight, it was 25 probes to 10 SCVs. Now MMA is starting to rebuild that economy. But how does he make this work? It's so difficult to not only pump out the bio off one base, but also the tech units like Vikings.
Yeah, that's all Patience needs to do is sit back and defend. He's got #1 Colossus coming out now. He builds a second one, and MMA's almost dead. So MMA needs to do something soon. He actually cannot allow Patience to rebuild this Nexus. He cannot allow the Colossus numbers to climb. Because very simply, as you said, he just doesn't have enough money to build Vikings.
Oh, and now the medevacs, he's starting to do a little bit of scouting with those. The Stalkers come down the ramp, and there is just, it looks like there's just too much Protoss here, Apollo. MMA, he really needs to make a miracle happen with this engagement if he wants to take this game back. There's the scan to pick off the Observer, so Patience not quite as aware anymore about the positioning of the Terran player's army. But he kind of knows that I feel like as Patience, you have to know that MMA really needs to do some critical damage.
I think that MMA just has to drop. Yeah, I was going to say, he just needs to keep dropping. I think he can expand in this game as well. I think there may be enough time through multiple drops, time after time, because there isn't that much mobility right now for Patience. These Stalkers, great. If they're right under the medivacs, great. But if they're not close, they could die quite easily here.
And the bio is being dropped inside of the main base. Make a great point. These guys can actually take out the Stalkers on their own, and that's what he's going to try to do, focusing a few of them down the Colossus with the Zealots come up. There's still some units outside the natural. Picks off most of the Stalkers, but some units are left behind. Not necessarily the best trade from the main. He's just going to tap out. Patience takes game #1 in this best of 3.
A good start there for Patience in this best of 3. I think MMA would have liked to maybe have seen this coming, and it would have been a lot better of a game for him. But Azubu, Patience, was able to hide the information, hide the robotics facility, hide the additional gateways until it was way too late. The bunkers couldn't even complete. If they were complete, I think it would have been maybe a different story. But it is the Team Azubu player who picks up the first map here, the first victory, the first game of the day here at Dreamhack Winter Day 2. And as you said, it is a best of 3. The next map is going to be Derelict Watcher. So we'll see how this is going to play out. Looks like we do have something wrong with Patience, but it's going to get fixed fast.
Yeah, I had to ask Apollo, because you kind of mentioned those bunkers. Right as Patience's attack hit, do you think MMA was a bit overconfident the way that he stepped out there, or was he worried about getting force fielded between the bunkers? They were so close to completing, and he actually canceled all 3 at the same time. I feel like he thought that he was going to be able to overpower this force, but maybe was caught a bit off guard by how strong that attack was.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, because not only was MMA not ready with the bunkers, was that decision to cancel them and go for it the right one at the same time. Maybe he could have waited until the bunkers were completed. But I think that he cancelled a pylon behind. He forced the cancel, and I'm quite sure that maybe triggered him to be like, oh, I just cancelled his close pylon. Maybe I can get to these Immortals before the reinforcements can get there, which seems to be a kind of a split-second decision. And as we saw, may have not been the right one there for MMA, as it may have cost him the game, as that attack was very powerful and dealt a lot of damage, killing the natural command center, killing a lot of those units. MMA did do well, though, in recovery to what actually happened. I think a lot of players are like, well, I'm pretty much dead. His decision to pick off the Nexus while able to kill a lot of the units as well was a close game, considering.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I kind of wonder how this game would have turned out if MMA, as that attack hit his natural, if he immediately moved that command center back towards his main base. If he had been able to save that and do that counterattack damage, picking off the Nexus and that Colossus, with an extra orbital command, you can fit out so many more units with that extra mule. I feel like this could have been a completely different game.
There's lots of different ways to replay that series, well, that map, should I say, by the sounds of it. But as we saw, the way it was played out is in favor of the Team Azubu player. His first Dreamhack event, surprisingly, despite qualifying for Dreamhack Winter, didn't play any other Dreamhack stop and tour this year. He is an online qualifier. At each stop of the 4 prior, there was 4 qualifiers from each, giving us 16. And then, of course, 4 players from online, which gave us 20 players to complete the Dreamhack Winter player list. MMA qualifying through Dreamhack Bucharest, one of the most stacked tournaments to date in StarCraft 2 history. A massive tournament where he was able to finish top 4 in that. And I think he lost out versus Tasia, or Innovation maybe, I think. It was Innovation. Innovation he lost out to, who will be playing in a couple of series time against Jadong, and that's going to be a series to remember, isn't it? Innovation versus Jadong, our 3rd series of the day.
Every series is basically a series to remember at this point in the tournament. There's so much. The level of competition is actually getting really ridiculous. But I think Jadong Innovation personally is going to be a fantastic match. It's probably probably number 1 I'm looking forward to today, actually. But MMA here, it's going to need to recover things. Derelict Watch, as you said, is the map. It's a bit more open than Belshir Vestige, but I think for TVP, not really too much of a difference. It's actually a pretty solid map for any early Protoss aggression, even off of 1 base, with some of the space that you have for builds like Proxy Stargate, very popular, especially we saw a lot of that from SOS in yesterday's matches. Any thoughts before we jump into Game 2?
Not really, just kind of excited to see what Patience is going to bring to the table this time. I think it's more so Patience than anybody else, especially when you start a series with such an aggressive strategy. You've said, I'm going to play it like this. He's not going to repeat it, which makes me question what is going to happen next. On a map like this, could he go for a Proxy Oracle like we saw SOS do multiple times yesterday? Is he going to build the pylon in the right place? Is the second question.
That is a very important question. As we count down, we're going into game number 2 of this best of 3 between MMA and Patience. And let's see if he's going to be a tied series or if this guy in the top right can close it out. Spawning as the red Protoss player with a very aggressive build in game number 1 from Team Azubu, it is Patience. Really nice job of hiding that robotics facility from where the Reaper would scout, and I think that was one of the defining characteristics of that game. But can this guy bring it back? In the southwest position, the blue Terran from Team Acer, it is MMA.
All right, so Derelict Watcher here, the second map of this best of 3. And I wonder if we'll even get to that 3rd map, to be honest.
Patience showing a lot of, I think, not just skill, but also that little bit of trickery. I think when you kind of anticipate that sometimes a Terran player goes for the Reaper build, kind of assuming that with a good scouting pattern, they'll be able to see anything that you go for, no matter what tech choice it is as the Protoss player, that the Reaper, it kind of gives you that almost that false sense of security since MMA didn't see it. You kind of get that assumption that there's not anything to see but the gateway's coming in at a pretty standard time for Patience this time around. We're seeing MMA open once again with the barracks into that quick gas, so wouldn't be surprised to see him play out with the Reaper, and I think that makes doing some builds like a Proxy Stargate a little bit more difficult for Patience, mostly because the Reaper can get around and get that scout out if MMA decides to send an SCV early on to check for that double gas. And so far, it's still just one gas geyser, so there's potential for another fast expand build from Patience, no matter what direction he eventually heads in.
Do you think MMA could... We actually haven't really seen a lot of the playstyles that are former Terrans, like Innovation, MMA, MVP, the SCV pool playstyle. Why do you think we're not seeing that as much?
Honestly,
and in recent times?
Honestly, it comes down to a lot of Protoss players starting to get ready for that. There's ways that you can bring Harass as a Protoss player that slow down a Terran player enough that it makes building up for that timing more and more difficult. If you have to invest early resources into either scouting, that slows down. If Terran players if it was a bit easier to go for the one barracks expand or the command center first builds without having to worry as much about the oracles or the potential blink stalker plays, then you can build up enough of a power attack at 10 minutes to deal that damage. But even some players started to hard counter these styles. We see SOS play a lot of fast Templar builds, and Storm is one of the #1 plays that can hard counter these SCV pulls as everything just gets so clumped. But the SCV now coming in, and he should see that Patience, I mean, he's still in that one gas geyser once he gets into the main base. It does look like he wants to take this quick Nexus. Thankfully, the SCV can kind of block this for a little bit.
Well, that also can be a little bit confusing. Even though the probe was there looking to take a Nexus, it's not 100% certain. He didn't actually get inside the main base to confirm it. But with a Reaper out now, that will be the information that MMA needs to know exactly what's going on. He'd be able to go up this ramp here and spot that Nexus and realizing, goody, he's not trying to do anything super aggressive here, and the game will continue on from this point. MMA did decide to build a bunker quite fast, though, upon realizing that the Zealot was almost looking like he wanted to go over the map quite fast, and there could have been Stalkers rallied behind it, considering that MMA doesn't have any units out himself apart from this Reaper.
It's kind of interesting as a Terran player when your Reaper comes up and you see that Zealot, because he lost the SCV to that Zealot. The only times a Protoss player will usually open with the fast Zealot is either if they think you might engineering bay block, or if they want to bring a fast Zealot Mothership Core Stalker push. But seeing that Nexus has to let them know, okay, it's just the Zealot Mothership Core expand, which means that second gas is a bit later, but still we see Patience with a little bit of the mind games. He's denied that Reaper access into his base, and he's building a Stargate, so we could get that 2-base Oracle play that we've been mentioning a little bit before.
Yeah, this is a build that we do see, not super often, but we do see it. And with this Stargate coming out, is it going to get spotted here? The Reaper jumps up. No denial from the Zealot Mothership Core. Oh, MMA picks up a nice scout there, sees the Stargate, realizes that the threat of an Oracle is absolutely there. And he even gets out with the Reaper, and now it's time to prepare for what he knows is most likely coming.
Yeah, that potential of the fast Oracle is such a huge threat in the Terran versus Protoss matchup. You need 6 Marines to hold it off, just a head-on engagement, but also can force those missile turrets, as I said, forcing the investment into static defense. That's an engineering base really early on, 125 minerals, 100 minerals per base to get a missile turret covering your mineral lines. And even then, the Oracles can still poke around some of the edges of the geysers. And we see extra gas being taken, so he's not going to do any type of fast gateway follow-up to this. He's just playing this out to try to get a bit of map control. And he can even keep the Oracle alive into the mid-game stages and use abilities like Revelation to just see MMA's army as it starts to move around.
How much damage is this Oracle going to do? I mean, sure, it can do the other things we mentioned, but ideally, it's been built to kill SCVs. That's what an Oracle does. It's its main purpose. On the box the Oracle comes in, it says to kill SCVs, at least 5 per game. But is it actually going to get that now? Marines in position on the natural.
Let's see if this reads advertised as true. There are 5 Marines here to try to stave this off. Even pops one out of the bunker, wants to make sure he can take an engagement versus this. And at the very least, the Oracle gets the scout. So far, not even, okay, just grabbing one SCV, but he gets a read on everything. He sees this as another very standard follow-up to this Reaper expand. And while the Oracle won't do too much damage, he's kind of pulling MMA around. If you can delay that SCV from planting the starport a couple of seconds, even that's a little bit nice. But I have to agree with you, Paulo. His goal, always with the Oracle, if you can kill SCVs, that's your #1 priority, but not really able to get that done here.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate there, but it all comes down to it being scouted early on. MMA was prepared, so it's a little bit unfortunate there for Patience, but nevertheless, the game will continue on as he has the robotics bay down. Has quite an early Twilight Council here. Quite an early Twilight Council. So I'm not too sure what we're going to see from this robotics bay. Maybe just a single Colossus and then just a straight switch over into the Templar play here. I guess he could be getting Blink alongside his Colossus here if he's feeling threatened by the likelihood that MMA does like to drop in multiple places at multiple times. And yeah, and it looks like that is going to be the case here. Just get that blink, and I think he will stay on Colossus for a little bit faster than the usual fast switch that we see.
Yeah, a scan from MMA reveals not honestly too much, since the Robotics Bay and the Twilight Council are in the natural. We see the Envision being used. You can patients can spot the Marines of MMA as they wander around the map, but kind of interesting going for that blink. I'm wondering if this means he'll commit to the Colossus a little bit more, as oftentimes you see upgrades line up like the +2, and then you get the Twilight Council for charge, and you can move into a very powerful Zealot-based composition. But instead choosing to take a third base, and I actually like this on this map where drops can be pretty good. You get the blink, and even just a handful of Stalkers can be good at holding off drops since there's so much space to cover.
I mean, right now, you could arguably say Patience's third base is pretty fast compared to usual. But with the aid of Blink, he's saying the weakness and the reason why we don't see this fast third is because Protoss players get spread too thin. They can't defend across all 3 lines. But with Blink, he's looking to eliminate that weakness of the overall strategy here. But I'm still a little bit concerned for him. It's not a lot of units. He doesn't have a lot of gateways. He only has a single Colossus. This is not going to be as easy as it may just seem, but looks like this first drop should be repelled with that Colossus there. With no combat shields on this unit, they're going to take a lot of damage from that, and he will have to pick up and get out of there. But I guess the second thing to mention is that MMA has no idea about this Nexus yet.
I mean, he forces this Guardian Shield, but you're right, he doesn't know about the third base. He's just trying to bring standard pressure towards the Protoss main. And actually, the army moves down towards the natural. MMA runs into the mineral line, focuses a few probes, gets a couple kills for his money. He's actually going straight after this Nexus.
Oh.
Half of the health is gone. He's burning through this. The Stalkers blink up. He will evacuate, loses one of the medevacs with a few of those units behind, keeps the full one alive. And there's this threat from MMA. Of course, he can pick off this pylon as well, but that third Nexus is complete. And I don't know if MMA's done enough damage to even things out from this fast third Nexus of Patience just yet.
Absolutely, I agree with you. He has not done enough damage yet. This third Nexus is going to start to pay its way in this game. He's going to be able to throw down more gateways. He's going to be able to increase his army size. They're already starting to come in now. 3 extra gateways. Once these gateways start to complete, the army size is going to be way too big, and there will be no way for MMA to really punish this. He needs to find out about it. That's the #1 point of playing StarCraft. You need to get the information, because without the information, you can't react accordingly. And right now, a single Marine, even that doesn't quite get it. It could be just now building that Nexus there. MMA is going to pick up and have a look, though, and upon seeing a fully completed Nexus, now it's really time to up a couple of gears. He needs to start being aggressive. He needs to drop all over the place now.
Yeah, I think he's kind of wishing he grabbed the main Nexus, but he does get in the mineral line. The army not moving quite as fast as it could. 4 Patience picks off about half of this. He's got 18 probes killed so far this game. Only 1 medevac will escape, leaves a few of these bio units behind to grabs the Stalker, at least for his trouble. But extended thermal lance is coming in. +1 attack is done. We have +2 armor on the way now for Patience. And he's got a lot of Colossi actually moving out onto the field. He's up to 3 now.
Yes, he is up to 3. And once these all join together, that's quite a strong army that he has. Oracle over there. If any SCVs were getting transferred, which they are, I can see on the left-hand side. But it looks like these Marines and Marauders will escort them up there. But MMA did do damage there, not a huge amount. I think the game may be a little bit equal, I'd say, at this point. Not somebody with a massive or disadvantage in this game.
Yeah, I think
I think he would have liked to do more than he did.
Yeah, I think it's important to consider, though, that he's evened out the worker count. And since, with the Terran player having access to those mules, it gives a little bit of an economic edge to the Ace or Terran. And picking off those 18 probes, that's just enough to keep him in the game, aside from that third Nexus being so fast. We see the switch in tech coming up. That Templar Archives charge is on the way, even an Immortal being added in for a little bit more staying power in this army. And MMA is actually looking really good on his upgrades, too. 2 are on the way. He's even getting the +1 vehicle and ship weapons that'll help out those Vikings, and maybe if he decides throwing Hellbats at some point, even getting a second starport. He's really rounding up all of his tech. The one tech building he doesn't have just yet is that Ghost Academy, though. Yeah,
that's definitely something that we should be seeing down in a regular game here, but he's just added on 3 extra barracks. This is Derelict Watcher after all. It is quite a large open map where I suppose you can spread out quite thinly and avoid and evade a lot of those storms. But ideally, I'm pretty sure MMA would like to get up to the Ghost Academy eventually here. But so far, I'd like to say this game, as mentioned, is kind of equal. You look at the supplies, 148 to Patience, MMA with a little bit of a lead. And I suppose that it's really going to come down to the fights. Who's going to fight better? They've both got big armies now. There's no more small, cute tactics that we can see with drops and so on, I don't think, past this point. And you see Sork has taken a little bit of damage here. MMA is moving out. I don't think he's going to be able to crack that army. It's quite strong, isn't it?
Yeah, Patience sees just about everything. The Envision has just worn off. He was able to kill the Oracle earlier on, but knowing where MMA's army is, as a player that can be very mobile and go for guerrilla-style tactics around the map, if you can keep an eye on his army, that's one of the best ways to you can just turtle up, play very safely. And MMA, how do you really attack someone when he can see your units moving across the field? His 2-2, though, is wrapping up right now. He has a very small upgrade advantage. It's a only +1 attack done for Patience. Scans for the Observer, sends 4 medevacs out, and he still has a pretty palpable army sitting outside this natural and third base area as well.
So MMA, I think he got spotted by that pylon there. I think it's just, may have just been in range. You'll have to look at the army movement of Patience, and by the looks of it going to the main base, I think he may have spotted it. A lot of units up there. There is another pylon as well to make sure he does see it. But at the moment, MMA is moving down here. He's going to pick off the one Colossus, maybe. No, the Stalkers blink forward to deny it.
Very nice catch from Patience, trying to slow this army down. The 4 medevacs try to blast their way into the main as well, raining down upon the main base mineral line. He's actually focusing on this main nexus. It looks like he should be able to grab it if he's able to continue attacking. The Zealots are starting to take away a little bit of the attention. Does get the nexus. That +2 attack upgrade still going. At the same time, the army in the south being chased. The Colossi walking into the Vikings gets a couple of great shots off on this army that's giving chase, about as good as MMA can get, but all of his Vikings will be killed. And while he's hurt the Colossi, they're all still alive.
So what does Patience do? Does he go with an advantage saying that I just killed all your Vikings? Does he go over the map? Does he go home? But it looks like he's going to go home to try to defend this. He's so far out of position, and MMA is destroying everything inside. And the thing is, even though MMA lost a lot of his army, he's going to replace it in the time that's been given to him, with Patience going back and then eventually going all the way to the other side of the map. MMA will be able to replenish the Vikings he's lost.
Yeah, Patience manages to grab just one of the medevacs that was fleeing from the scene. But you make a great point. MMA not only got himself a nice amount of damage done on the production, taking out the robotics facility that's now being rebuilt, and also I think he actually denied that +2 attack upgrade as well. So very nice for him. We also have to consider, of course, now he's putting out 4 Vikings at a time. Making a push with this isn't going to work. At the same time, he finished Mobius Reactor. He can get out Ghosts as well with fast EMPs to also take this out. But the factory sees this army kind of pressuring its way forward. MMA does need to be careful that he doesn't commit too much to these drops. He has a lot of the army in the air at this time.
Yeah, he's got 3 medevacs to the main base. He's got 3 medevacs to the third as well. But, whoa, that's a bit messy there. And unfortunately, these Stalkers have blinks. So that medevac... gets away 1 hit there.
1 hit point, very close. Medevac for MMA. He's playing with fire here, but there come those other 3 medevacs towards the third base. He drops the scan. There's only a lone photon cannon and that mothership core there with a photon overcharge, but Patience is actually trying to take a fight here against the main force of MMA out on the field. There's no goes with this. There are a couple of, I think there's a couple Archons at the very least mixed in with this. A lot of these Colossi. The Viking count is sitting at about 6 for MMA's army. He needs a little bit more time, I think, to get this army together. He's just going to attack the third base, try to pull Patience back once again.
He's not coming back this time, though.
Not going to be enough. He's pressing in now towards that natural expansion. There are a few ghosts here that can try to EMP these Archons. The Vikings doing everything possible. A lot of the Colossi are very low on their actual hit points, so once they get through these shields, we even see MMA bringing his SCVs, trying to get a full attack. Here comes the Templar. The Storms could end this. There's not enough energy for any EMPs on these ghosts anymore, and he's just going to get locked in inside of his own third base.
This is looking okay for MMA, but these Storms could change everything.
He's blanketing the entire Terran force. The SCV's not going to be able to tank enough damage versus this, but with the flank, MMA is able to pick off everything from the backside and taking out the third base. There's no economy for Patience to replenish this force. MMA takes game number 2 and ties this series up 1-1.
Excellent game there from MMA. Really loving the almost baiting, I think we can say that is. Moving forward with his army, pulling the Protoss army to meet and greet him. Is obviously Patience for the majority of that game was like, I could probably kill your army. And then MMA runs back home and then starts dropping the main and third. Beautiful tactics coming out from the Ace of Terran there. And Patience, through losing his upgrades, he was never that fast with upgrades in this game, and kind of being circled around a little bit, I'd like to say, in that game. Got a little bit dizzy, like MMA likes to make his opponents feel. And MMA is able to tie this series up, and we will be going to that third game.
That sandwich he was able to get on the army outside of his third base, that's a game winner right there. If your army as a Terran gets bottlenecked that much where the Storms can hit everything, if your whole army is right there, you just get completely destroyed by a Protoss ball like that. So it's just great, not only tactics by MMA, but his positioning on his army, always hitting the main base when it was most vulnerable. He hit that third base and denying a lot of the economy, even denying that +2 attack upgrade, which really helps those Colossi shred through the Bioforce. So we're seeing MMA kick it up a notch after that first game.
Yeah, that was absolutely a level step up from game number 1 to game number 2 there for MMA, and it was really well executed. And we'll see what's going to happen on this next map. It is Akelon Wastes. It is again one of the smaller maps here that we have in the map pool. If we think about that, we have Whirlwind, Frost. This is a smaller one where aggression could be present, a proxy oracle, some form of blink play. But to be honest, the aggression tendencies that we usually see haven't been displayed yet from this player. He's been playing very normal. It's just a one gateway expand out. Granted, he did decide to try and get that oracle to work, but it wasn't a heavy investment.
I mean, we saw a bit more of the two-base aggressive play come out of him on the first map, but to your point, Akelon Waste is a great macro map for Protoss. It's one of the easier maps to secure your third base on, probably among the easiest in this tournament to get a fourth base on. So I think looking at the overall scope of this matchup, there's still a lot of great space for drops if MMA wants to bring that heavy aggression once more. So I think that's one important thing to look at, because MMA, he's really good at clawing his way back in from weird situations. He managed to almost buy himself a second life in the first map on Belshire Vestige after having that natural command center killed. So this game could really go either way. I'm just wondering if Patience has any tricks left up his sleeve for us.
That's right. The longer and deeper you go into a tournament, the less tricks you have, because you've used them to get to where you are usually. Well, let's find out what can happen in map number 3 here between these two players. Who's moving to at least a top 8 finish here at Dreamhack Winter?
It's time to decide who wins this match. You're right, Apollo, spawning in the top left position. As the red Protoss player from Team Azubu, it is Patience. Played some solid ball, but could not, in that second game, hold himself up against the endless aggression of our Terran player. In the southeast, in blue from Acer, it is MMA. Displaying some very Tasia-like qualities that we saw in yesterday's Terran versus Protoss, just kind of just barreling through with a very heavy Marauder count in the army, making that photon overcharge damage not do quite as much, making picking off those Nexi even easier. So I really like this this kind of like switch we're seeing from the Terrans now, just really just blowing the aggression through, kind of disregarding that that defensive Protoss setup.
If you can break the Protoss player, then albeit, but sometimes it is very difficult to achieve against some of the best Protoss players in the world. Their defense is usually impeccable. It's almost impossible to break them, which is like the, Rain, a prime example, almost unstoppable when it comes to being able to break his defense. But we'll see how Patience is going to play. We have a regular time gateway here on 13. No option to scout here after the gateway, which is usually something that Protoss players do like to do. They like to see if it is a one barracks command center first. Is it a Reaper opening? Is it a later timed gas? And without any scout information, he may have a specific plan here. I mean, usually you don't scout if you do already know exactly what you're going to do no matter what. It doesn't matter what your opponent does.
Yeah, he either anticipates that MMA is going to do the same thing, or he has something special in mind no matter what the opening is. We'll have to see when or if that second assimilator does get started for Patience, but this is kind of nice. MMA won't have to deal with any probes harassing his SCV building that command center, and we kind of saw this opening from Tasia yesterday. And I still think it's possible to hold off a lot of early Protoss attacks with the command center first, since this wasn't anything like a 10 supply gateway. Yeah. And it's going to largely come down to what type of aggression Patience wants to bring, if he decides to bring any at all.
Well, I think MMA has identified that his opponent in Game 1 and Game 2, and if he's following patterns, has identified that this player likes to go one gateway for a Nexus, takes a second base quite fast. So MMA says, all right, well, I'm going to run a risk. I'm going to hope that he does the same thing 3 times in a row. And looking for MMA, that is the case. So his build is actually perfectly tailored towards what Patience has done in game number 1 and 2. And MMA goes in, sees the lack of second gas, and says, excellent. You're not trying to be aggressive early on. I've gotten away with a faster command center. I will have a stronger economy. Good start for MMA here.
Yeah, I like this. As a Terran player, if you can get away with a command center first like this, if you don't think you're going to be hit with that very fast aggression that's difficult to hold without either earlier Marines or earlier scouting, it's always a plus. You get the production up very quickly, 2 Marines at a time, getting that fast third barracks as well. Now, the probe will be able to come in. I don't know if it quite saw that in that command center. It did not, but it sees the barracks set up, and this should be a tell to him. It's like, okay, there's no gas either, so it's probably a command center I missed down there. And I'm kind of wondering, should see MMA take the second 2 gases. I don't think he'll do anything quite as greedy as getting a very fast third command center with no gas, but there's always that weird potential if he wants to play super greedy.
Yes, there is. This SCV moving down south here. And that SCV wants to scout. He just wants to go, have a look around, get into the Protoss space eventually here, and see what tech choice has been thrown down. It is a robotics facility, as we can see here from Patience, and all seemingly standard so far, but the big question is, does he build an Immortal from that? I'm going to assume that it's going to be regular play here, but that SCV is the one that wants to find out that information, and he is approaching the natural. He spots the natural been taken. No extra information, unfortunately, though, as it will get picked off here.
Yeah, MMA is actually getting a bit aggressive himself on the field, chasing the Stalker of Patience back. So he's bringing this kind of pressure that he showed in his earlier matches yesterday as well. But this nice control from Patience, he's able to kite the Marines at the Stalker, get a couple of kills. The Forge is on the way back at home, and MMA is doing his best to try to shove this back, but I mean, Patience not giving up any ground here and really denying any type of pressure from coming in from the Ace or Terran player.
Well, yeah, Patience has actually probably won that battle with the Stalker against the Marines there. Dealt out a lot of damage without really taking any himself. But I guess on the other hand, MMA never got a bunker, so... But we are just seeing regular play come out from Patience. He's taken the Observer, he's got a now +1 armor, and he's taken the gases on the natural, so it is just a regular setup here. And from the looks of it, I'd imagine that we'll see the robotics bay come down very, very shortly, unless he wants to play down the Twilight Council tech choice instead. But on the other side of things, MMA, regular build, just a couple of barracks here, 3 barracks over towards his factory and engineering bay. And this game is going to start to look towards and aim towards that 10-minute timing of where Stim is complete, and MMA can move out, and he actually is going to pick up Stalker there. Nice small little victory there for MMA.
Yeah, very, very nice grab. And you can kind of see it's kind of a nice touch. MMA actually put all of his weakened SCVs inside the bunker. He's just playing it smart, doesn't want to give up too much. Throws the scan into the main base of Patience, and he sees Twilight Council, Robo Bay, and the Forge. He sees absolutely everything that Patience is going for, so he can kind of make a read, say, well, probably want to play more Marauder Heavy, of course, versus any type of Colossus-based attacks, and he knows there's that threat of Colossi coming out in the future.
And he's decided just to throw down the Tech Lab and Reactor right now, realizing there's no threat coming, because this is a relatively defensive setup here that we see from Patience, and MMA's identified that. He throws his third command center down immediately on the third base location, and the build that we're seeing from Patience is identical to the one that we just saw on Derelict Watcher. Blink should be the upgrade research here, I'd imagine, but look at that. He's decided to throw down the Dark Shrine instead. This is a very, very late Dark Shrine, but if it's not anticipated, and there's no turrets, and there's availability towards the SCV lines, then it doesn't matter what time it is.
Yeah, it kind of seems like if you're anticipating that any type of Colossus-based play or this upgrade timing, you have a couple extra minutes to prepare. The Dark Templar, honestly, as a Terran player, it's not something that you're going to see coming out of this. The Protoss player, you kind of expect off a single Forge to invest the gas into the Colossi, invest the gas into either a Blink or Charge upgrade with that +2, and something along the lines of maybe even getting the Extended Thermal Lance for the Colossus. So this is kind of a weird situation for MMA, as he's investing everything he has into these meals. You see 2 more immediately get dropped. He's adding on infrastructure, and he's just bolstering himself up for a much later attack that could come from the Protoss player.
A big investment here. It's very difficult to be able to go Colossus, Dark Templar, get ready to switch over to High Templar and Storm. A big gas investment here from Patience. And the word investment is key here, because if it doesn't pay off, then I think MMA may be in a decent position. We'll see how many Dark Templar are actually purchased here and do come on the field. But if he can get into the SCV lines, as now the Dark Templar, or the Dark Shrine, should I say, is finished. 1,
Important
2.
to consider, he also doesn't have that many units at home. He's rallying everything out. And with the pylon spread that Patience has, we see the first 2 Dark Templar coming in from midfield towards the left side. He has great map vision. Is MMA going to be able to do any damage versus this? There's the Colossus with a couple of sentries hoping to defend. Once that Nexus is complete, the Photon Overcharge can be used to defend. And there's a little bit of an army out here. The Observer sees that there's nothing, there's not too much here from MMA. There the Dark Templar go. Keep in mind, there's no way to close the natural off from the main base. There's no supply depots there.
My
There's
God,
the
he
scan.
spots it.
Sees it, grabs one of the Dark Templar, the other one making its way towards the main base, gets tagged with the concussive shells, still slipping through. There's no scans available for MMA just yet. So he has to get this missile turret up, trying to just buy some time. The Dark Templar actually automatically tagging itself on the Marines. I think he needs to start to try to focus on some of these SCVs. He has one in the third base of MMA as well.
Absolutely fantastic vision from MMA. That is something you don't see very often. Being able to spot it immediately and just pick it up like that. Excellent play from MMA, but at this point, he is still losing SCVs. He has lost a couple here. As the game was a little bit lagging. Being slowed down a little bit there. Not sure by what or who, but MMA does clean it up. I'm not too sure how many SCVs he did lose, but it is still 54 to 63. But by gosh, being able to spot it like that while controlling and looking to drop at the same time, that was pretty fascinating. That was remarkable to see.
Yeah, it's very nice being able to limit the amount of damage. That could have been catastrophic, and he did lose about 13 SCVs this game to Patience. And now we see Patience actually moving up into more of that Robotech-based style this game. You're not seeing that fast switch into any type of storm play. Still getting the extended thermal lance, moving into that +1 attack as well, and getting his charge. But there's a huge force here from MMA.
Yeah, look at the army difference, 74 to 49. The investment in Dark Templar, the way he's played this out, it's not really a time that you can afford to be able to do lots of tech choices off 2 bases. It's slowed down and smallened his army. And at this point, can MMA use that advantage? Can he get in? Can he find damage to be dealt?
Well, his composition with this Biobot, at least outside of the natural, looks very Marine heavy. He has 2 medevacs packed with Marauders heading towards the main base. There's a couple of Stalkers already postured to catch this as the +2/2 starts with the Terran player. I feel like pressing in, even without the upgrades for these Colossi being done just yet, 3 of them versus this many Marines, he's going to cleave through this army in absolutely no time. MMA needs to be very careful with how he chooses to engage, if he decides to engage at all.
All right, so MMA playing this very patiently. He hasn't been able to deal any damage to his opponent at all in this game. Not a single drop has really done anything, or even landed, to be honest. But the Templar Archives now is being played by Patience, and he will be looking towards getting that storm soon. MMA, 156 supply, 63 SCVs across 3 bases, and he's starting to ramp up his production. 3 extra barracks being added on. And as you said, this map can lean towards a defensive Protoss player here. He's up on the high ground. He's up a couple of ramps. He's got force fields and the Photon Overcharge available, and lots of Colossus in good position. And MMA can't seem to break the front wall.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it this way. The Colossi can go up these cliffs into the main from the 3rd base very quickly. The Stalkers are just a blink away from covering any one of the 3 bases that he has, and it really allows Patience to just turtle up. Now he's pressing out a little bit more. I feel like he can still try to take a 4th base off of this setup that he has as he moves into the storm, as he gets that +2. Marine spots this Warp Prism moving towards the south side. There are 2 Vikings already been planted here for a long time. Zealots harassing this 3rd base at the same time. 4 Patience trying to grab a few more SCVs. He grabs about 5 or 6 of them, not too bad. The bio here to clean it up, though, as MMA gets his own 2-2 very, very close to finishing. He's also cleaned up all the pylons on the east half of the map, so denying a little bit more of this map presence. As Patience, he loads up the Warp Prism. He's got a Templar, 3 Zealots getting ready to try to move towards that main base, and the Vikings are MMA actually trying to clear out anything else that's in the skies for the Protoss player.
What do you think about the just +2 armor being completed now for Patience? His upgrade's only +1 attack and +2 armor. It is quite far behind MMA, who's about to be 2-2, and I'm sure we'll be looking for 3-3 immediately here. And that could play a big part in the fights once these finally happen.
I think whenever you want to play with any kind of composition as a Protoss versus Terran that's heavy on charge lots, you almost want to have that upgrade advantage. You want to be +3 versus +2 or +2 versus +1. But when it's even on the upgrades, the Marines do a really great job of cutting straight through those Zealots. And even the Marauders can do a bit more damage. So I think this is definitely a composition setup that favors MMA. As both players get closer to maxing out, there's 10 more workers on the field for Patience, which means 10 more army supply available for the Ace or Terran player. And this Warp Prism still presenting an active threat. MMA's medevac might spot this, and there are still 2 Vikings that could try to catch it.
Yeah, I wonder if he gets that down here south, and actually the Warp Prism is going to move away. The Vikings have spotted it and will go for it. But this game has been a slow one here. Not too many fights at all. MMA is starting to build. Those 3-3 upgrades now coming into play, but he has found the Warp Prism, and that is an expensive one. 3 Zealots and a High Templar in there, looking to get into the main base and SCV line. But look at this. Patience moving out here. I think it's a little bit brave. I think this is actually very brave.
Yeah, he's trying to send some Zealots through. This Bioforce, like I said, they're going to do a great job of pushing this back. There's the main army outside. Stalkers try to come up and snipe one of the Vikings. Now, the Viking count is actually at 10. Not all of them were clumped up together. I don't know. He's going to need some fantastic storms, basically, if he wants to push through this. But I feel like his army is spread out so much in terms of his army supply. This force could not actually take a head-on fight.
It's very small. Look at it. That's all it was. 3 Colossus and a couple of High Templar there. Against a spread-out MMA, there's no reinforcement pylon. I'm not too sure what Patience was doing there. I don't think he was looking for a fight, more kind of posturing out. But I think that would have been very dangerous if he'd taken that fight. The Viking count is massive. The Ghost count is huge as well. And Observers are going to become rather important in this game. Is Cloak been researched yet for the Ghosts?
Yes.
Okay, it has, yeah. So
cloaking.
that's going to be a a crucial part of these next couple of fights. There's a lot of Vikings with scans that are going to be absolutely everywhere. These ghosts are going to be important. There's even SCVs with this, and MMA is getting ready to move out. His 3-3 isn't ready yet, but his army is. His army's strong. He's maxed out. He wants to fight.
I still really like the upgrade setup for MMA. He's even brought a couple SCVs, got them there to not only repair the Vikings, but tank a little bit of damage. But by the time that +3 gets close to completing, drops one storm, actually baiting a few of these units. The EMP hits all of the Templar. There's no storms available for this force anymore. He's warping in a huge round, 12 charge lots back at home to try to save this off as reinforcements. The Ghost's Cloak stepping forward. There's still an Observer to spot this, though. And he's actually taking a lot of damage, but now taking out the Observer. There's so many Vikings, barely any anti-air to deal with. These 2 more Templar wait in the natural. Will try to storm the Vikings, does hit a lot of damage on both of them, but the Colossi are almost all gone. Both toppled. Next Templar gets sniped up, and MMA is blasting his way into the natural of our Protoss player. Stepping through, Archons being morphed, not enough. Motion overcharge, not enough. Templar come down from the natural. The third base hitting a lot of this army, but there's still so much bio. More storms hitting. The medevac count is enough to barrel through what's left of this army, and GG MMA takes the series 2-1 over Patience.
Wow, wow, wow. What a steamroll. What a fight there as MMA moves on to the next round here. An excellent play from him. And that was an absolutely wonderful class of display with moving through one army steamrolling. Excellent from MMA. And it all started with a bunch of EMPs on those High Templars. Move forward, roll over the opponent, pick up the win. And Patience would have been like, well, that was a 20-minute game and a 30-second fight and I lost. And MMA, an excellent, excellent fight there. Wonderful fight.
It's one of the risks when you send your Templar out to try to bait out those storms on the incoming Terran army if the Terran player's not paying enough attention. But when you have that many Templar out there, it takes just one EMP, and then suddenly you have no storms with your main army. You're forced all the way back to retreat into that natural. You give up the positioning that you have against the Terran. You give up any type of concave that you have being chased up that ramp. So MMA just picked the perfect fight.
Absolutely wonderful play there from MMA. And he does move on to at least a top 8 finish here at Dreamhack Winter, the 2013 finals of the Dreamhack Tour this year. Congratulations to him, and he's earned at least $3,000 and the chance to move on to the semifinals and above. But Patience, unfortunately, through that best of 3, does now drop down in the bracket and will have to face off against one of the winners from the loser games that we'll be playing a little bit later on here. But that's us done for the first game. We will be having a winner's interview very shortly, but once we're done with that, we have a spectacular game coming your way. A former Dreamhack Winter Finals. Liquid Hero will be taking on Liquid Tasia in our second game of the day. What more could you ask for?
I mean, it wouldn't be a Pro Gaming StarCraft 2 event without a Team Liquid team kill, but among team kills that you're going to get, this should be a fantastic game. We've seen some amazing play from both Hero and Tasia. I'm specifically very impressed with Tasia's Terran versus Protoss. Yep. We saw him against SOS yesterday. Honestly, in a couple of those games, he was very far behind and managed to make it work by bringing that very heavy, aggressive drop style that we saw MMA just use, but in a much different way. He was able to just go through absolutely everything. He dropped on top of the army of SOS and was able to bring the game back. So I'm looking forward to a very back-and-forth, aggressive series from both of these players.
And remember that Tasia just a week or 2 ago 3-0'd Liquid Hero in the Home Story Cup 8. 3-0, made it look easy. But these players have played in the finals of a Dreamhack Winter tournament. Hero won it. Hero is the reigning double Dreamhack Winter champion. He's looking for a hat trick, looking for the first player ever to win 3 in a row. He was the first player to win 2 in a row. Can he make it 3? He'd be making history here. But as you said, it wouldn't be a StarCraft 2 professional high-level tournament if it wasn't for a Team Liquid clash. And well, it's time for the winner's interview. So take it away, Smix, with, of course, Acer MMA.
Thank you, Sean. Congratulations, MMA, on an amazing series against Patience. I want to just take it back all the way back to the first game, because after that game was over, the camera pans to MMA's face, and he seemed incredibly stressed. And obviously, it doesn't feel good to lose, but I kind of want to see what was going through his mind and how he prepared for that next game. 이제 그 첫 번째 경기 지고 난 다음에 그 카메라가 그 문성원 선수의 얼굴로 갔거든요. 근데 표정이 되게 안 좋았어요. 그래서 그 순간에 무슨 생각을 하고 있었는지, 그리고 그 다음 경기를 어떻게 준비를 했는지.
일단 첫 게임을 하고 오늘 손이 너무 안 움직이는 날인 것 같은 거예요. 컨트롤도 안 되고. 그래서 두 번째, 세 번째 게임은 그냥 마음 편하게 먹고 후반만 가면은 조금씩 손 풀릴 거라고 생각하고 그렇게 임했어요.
So he says in that first game, it just the whole time all I could think was my hands just are frozen. It seemed like I could not control any of my units. So I just decided when I going into games 2 and 3 to kind of play with the more comfortable mindset and to try to drag it out into the late game as much as I can. And hopefully, if I were able to get it to the late game, my hands would warm up by then. And I think that's why I was able to win those two games 2 and 3. Now, talking about games 2 and 3, he obviously won those games. I want to see what his mindset was going through those games because it seemed like in his series against Patience, there was a lot of mind games going on. 이제 경기 두 번째랑 세 번째를 하면서 무슨 생각으로 두 번째 세 번째 게임 하셨어요? 약간 심리전도 많았던 것 같은데 그냥 경기들 어땠어요?
일단 장기전을 갖자고 마음을 먹었었고 장기전 간 다음에 좀 의료선 드랍 같은 게 잘 손이 안 움직여서 유령이랑 바이킹을 많이 모아서 한방 러쉬를 계획했어요. 근데 잘 통한 것 같아요.
So he says, in terms of, I went into those games hoping to just drag it out into as much of a late game as possible. And in terms of medevac drops, because my hands, as I said earlier, were frozen, I felt like my medevac drops wouldn't be as effective. So I think that's why instead I decided to mass Ghosts and Vikings. And I think that's why it was as effective as it was. Now, actually, in his next game, he will be playing the winner of Hero versus Tasia. And I want to see what his thoughts are on that, who he thinks will come out, and if there's someone he would prefer to play. 이제 다음 상대는 이제 송영덕 선수와 윤영서 선수로 만나게 될 건데 두 선수들 중에서 누구를 더 만나고 싶은지 그리고 개인적으로 누가 올라올 것 같은지.
둘 다 친한 동생이라 누가 올라와도 상관없을 것 같고 개인적으로는 영서가 좀 올라올 것 같아요. 왜냐하면은 요즘 어린 선수들이 너무 잘해서 라이프 선수나 뭐 태자나 마루나 다 어린 선수들이 너무 잘하는 것 같아요.
So he says there are actually two younger brothers that are, that I'm really close with. And younger brother is just an affectionate term Koreans use. And so I think it'll be good games nonetheless. But I do think Tasia will come up as, I feel like all these young players are doing so well lately. Tasia's doing well, Maru's doing well, Life is doing well. All these young players are doing well. So I think it'll be him I play. Last question I just want to ask how he feels going into that matchup, how he feels in his TBT, just with Tasia doing so well lately, if Tasia were to come up. 만약에 윤영서를 만나게 된다면 태태전 대회에 자신감 있는지 왜냐면 특히 요즘 윤영 선수가 요즘 너무 잘하고 있으니까 그래도 자신감 있는지.
제가 2년만 젊었어도 제가 때려 부수는데 지금 나이를 먹어서 위험할 것 같습니다. 힘들 것 같아요.
He says, guys, if I was just 2 years younger, I think I would have destroyed him. But unfortunately, that is not the case. So I think it will be a very, very hard game. But hopefully, it will work out. Congratulations, MMA, again with your win against Patience. I wish you the best of luck. And thank you again for doing this interview. Guys, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll have more games for you.